designed by VA managers to hide the fact veterans were waiting months to see a doctor.
Bottom line, it is important that we draw attention to the fact that this industry is out of control. And we also draw attention to the fact that the federal government itself is ordering millions and millions of dosages of potassium iodide for federal workers while telling the general population that, oh, you don't need to have that unless you live right next door to a nuclear power plant.
They're acting like they're preparing for some sort of nuclear emergency right now, because we now know that the Department of Health and Human Services, for example, they just ordered an unprecedented 14 million doses of potassium iodide, which, you know, protects the body in the event of radioactive poisoning. So the federal government, they are already acting as if there's been a severe nuclear accident. Does that concern you as much as it does me?
Oh, yes, it concerns me not only as a journalist, but as a just general citizen.
The truth is, radiation is an invisible poison that's all around us, and the levels of it are going up. It was in my research to find ways to try to shield my family or mitigate the dangers of increased radiation that I discovered that iodine was a key component and that the government was hoarding it. But the type of iodine they're hoarding is something you only take during a huge disaster, not something that you take on a daily basis that from the research helps your glands and body overall to be healthier. That's why we developed with Dr. Edward Group Survival Shield, a proprietary new form of nascent iodine. Survival Shield has been incredibly popular because of the results people have gotten, but also because it's more palatable and easier for children to take. It's not as harsh as some of the other iodines that are out there. We innovated with Survival Shield Nascent Iodine, and it's still available and is excellent. But we are now very excited to introduce X2. There is no other iodine anywhere near this. The other so-called nascent iodines are black and turn black on paper. The Survival Shield Nascent Iodine turns electric blue purple because it's from the pure crystal. You can literally see these ancient crystals seething with the iodine. If you think Survival Shield was powerful, X2 is the next level. Take the INFOWARS challenge. Regardless, you're getting high-quality iodine that on record the government admits everyone needs. It's essential, and you're supporting the very tip of the spear in revolutionary pro-liberty media. X2 from InfoWarsLife.com or call toll-free 888-253-3139. There's no other iodine like it on Earth.
And because early voting runs through this Friday, you don't have to wait till Election Day. You can vote all week.
The Rio Arriba County Clerk's Office reported this afternoon that a voter trying to cast an early ballot in Espanola today was told he had already voted 3 days prior.
Activist on the tape goes on to suggest that discarded ballots could be collected from what she called Ghetto Aurora, saying that African Americans and Mexicans tend to throw out their ballots.
And as for those programs we do need, I'll make them work better and I'll make them cost less.
Thousands of federal workers are issued taxpayer-funded credit cards so long as they buy items that cost less than $3,000 or micro purchases. Our review found about $20 billion in just about the course of a year.
We'll save billions by cutting waste and improving management and strengthening oversight.
We asked all of these other major federal agencies based here in D.C. for their micro purchase shopping lists, and all refused.
I'm pledging to cut the deficit we inherited by half by the end of my first term in office.
The Independent Congressional Budget Office warning a new fiscal crisis is coming if Washington doesn't get its spending in check.
Raising the debt ceiling, which has been done over 100 times, does not increase our debt.
If you've got a business, that you didn't build that. Somebody else made that happen.
live from the INFOWARS.com studios.
First, Ebola is not spread through the air like the flu.
Ebola is capable of entering human airway cells. Ebola is primed to be able to have respiratory transmission.
Crashing through the lies and disinformation, it's Alex Jones. You are either with the Republic or against it.
Welcome back to the live coverage of our pre-election coverage here at InfoWars Nightly News. I'm David Knight. I'm joined now with Leanne McAdoo. We're going to take a look at political ads that have surfaced. We're also going to look a little bit deeper as to what's behind these political ads. And of course, that's going to be the billionaires. Now, Leanne, CNN asked the question, what could Americans have bought with the $4 billion that was spent on elections this year? And I think it's kind of interesting that, of course, they offer some suggestions. This is what you would expect from CNN. They say, well, it's 10 times more than the government could have spent fighting Ebola, or more than the government would have spent on 25 F-18 fighters, or more than the government would have spent on 12,000 students K through 12 education. In other words, the government should own and control everything. And of course, we see a lot of people suggesting that the government should run campaigns as part of what they call campaign finance. I have a problem with that because the same people that would be running these campaigns are the same ones who are limiting access to the ballot, who are limiting access to the debates, and so I have a real problem with that. But let's start with an Indiegogo campaign, which is essentially attached to something called the May Day PAC, which is about putting forth campaign finance reform. But it's a very, very funny campaign. This guy had a goal of $20,000. And he actually achieved $100,000 of that goal. And of course, if you guys can pull this up, you can see some of the things that you get for participating in the campaign. They did, instead of the Obama campaign picture, they've got a picture of their candidate there. And underneath, instead of saying hope, it says sold on there. So this is Gil Fulbright, a satirical Senate candidate. And he's saying that he's running in this race in Kentucky because it's kind of a toss-up as to whether or not the Kentucky race or the North Carolina race is going to be the most expensive Senate race in American history. That's how much money is being put in a midterm election to control things. And we're going to talk about why this is happening. But let's take a look at this Senate candidate, the satirical Senate campaign ad here. This is Gil Fulbright.
Hi, I'm Gil Fulbright. The people who run my campaign, they've made this commercial, and I'm in it. This campaign, it's not about me. It's about crafting a version of me that'll appeal to you. A version that visits random work sites with paid actors pointing at things. A version of me that doesn't find old people loathsome or pointless. Has a conventionally attractive yet curiously still family. Listening to my constituents, legislating, these are things I don't do. What I do is spend about 70% of my time raising funds for re-election. I'd do anything to stay in office. My name's Gil Fulbright, but hell, I'll change my name to Phil Goldbright or Bill Fulbright or fill up my mouth with farts. These are the things that are important to me. And these are the fine people that finance my campaign. Now, in order to do these things, I have to stay in office. And to stay in office, I have to keep these guys happy. Now, if any of these things make these guys unhappy, well, my hands are tied. So come November, the choice is clear. Do you want another spineless mouthpiece for special interest and lobbyists, or a spineless mouthpiece for special interest and lobbyists? I'm Philip a mouth with farts, and I approve this message.
Okay, there you go. A brutally honest satire. And boy, that looks like the prototypical campaign ad that we've seen. Now, he points out in his Indiegogo campaign that in the Kentucky race, Mitch McConnell, 87% of the money that he's getting is from out of state. And his opponent, Grimes, is getting 75% of her money from out of state. And his solution is to take the extra money that he got in this Indiegogo campaign and to put it into a PAC that's called May Day PAC. Now, this is a PAC that's being run by someone named Lawrence Lessig. Now, this is a guy who's a Harvard political science professor. He's a Bilderberg member. He supports a new second constitutional convention. So he's not necessarily,
he's not necessarily a good guy. You have to look at this kind of resume here, and you got to say, well, when he says Mayday PAC, is he talking about Mayday in the sense that this is an emergency, or is he talking about Mayday in the sense that he wants a communist parade? I don't know. But here's the problem I see with campaign finance reform, Leanne. I don't think that it's going to do any good, because it's going to basically give the same vested interests that are in Washington, who have control over the ballots, who have control over the debates. It's going to give them absolute control over what's going on out there. Now, I understand, and we're going to talk about how billionaires are essentially setting up their own personal political action campaign committees. It's not just Bloomberg. There's a lot of billionaires who are doing this. But the problem isn't just the money, it's what's drawing the money. The fact is that we have so much power in Washington that it's like a black hole, and it's going to pull that money in, and no matter how much you try to prohibit that, you can't stop it. It's like the war on drugs. If there's a demand that's being created for this, prohibition of many of these things is just simply not going to work. There is so much money, so much power in Washington that you can't simply say, we're not going to allow anybody to have to run a political ad or to use their own money. To me, what that's going to do is that's going to shut down the very last, it's not going to shut down the big guys. They'll get through these regulations. Right. It's going to shut down the small guys.
Exactly. The people like you and I who can vote, like Dinesh D'Souza there, who's getting jail time for something very minuscule. Meanwhile, we hear about Adelson or the Koch brothers or something pumping millions, billions of dollars every year for their little pet projects.
Well, he's going to jail because he supposedly bundled $20,000 for a candidate that he personally knew. Now, every news source is reporting that Sheldon Adelson, who's a big casino owner in Nevada, anybody that watched the 2012 elections and was following the Republican primaries to see the shenanigans that they were pulling on Ron Paul, knows what Sheldon Adelson did in Las Vegas, essentially giving millions of dollars to Newt Gingrich and trying to rig the caucus there, having a caucus on Sunday that he wanted to make for Orthodox Jews only, basically setting up a religious test saying, you can't come to this caucus, you can come to the Saturday night one, but we're not going to let you come to the Sunday night caucus. I mean, this guy throws his weight around. Now, Dinesh D'Souza is going to jail for $20,000 that he gave to somebody, but everybody is reporting that Sheldon Adelson gave Lindsey Graham $15,000 to stop online gambling that was a competition for him. It's an open secret. Nobody's making any bones about it. What he did was, he was a sophisticated guy using the rules, okay? Dinesh D'Souza is just trying to participate. He's not looking at the rules, not looking at this web of regulations that were meant to catch the small nets, not the great big bumblebees like Sheldon Adelson. Sheldon Adelson probably set up a PAC, or he did something else to basically skirt the law, but everybody knows that that money is coming from Sheldon Adelson, especially Lindsey Graham.
Right. Well, and they've got so many avenues to do it, the soft money, the hard money, dark money. You just really don't really know where it's coming from. And then also, here you had mentioned before how a lot of this money is coming in from out of state. So here, for just to pick on Adelson again, I mean, wasn't he pumping a lot of money into fighting against Amendment 2 there in Florida?
Yeah, that's a very interesting case, and that's one we want to talk about. Amendment 2 in Florida is the medical marijuana they would make medical marijuana legal in Florida. Okay, there are three ballot measures in the District of Columbia and 2 states. It's Alaska and I think it's Oregon, where it's outright legalization. Now, Sheldon Adelson is not giving any money to those outright legalization initiatives. Instead, what he's doing is he's giving 85% of the money to defeat medical marijuana in Florida is coming from Sheldon Adelson, who lives in Las Vegas. Okay, he's a big casino owner there. So why is it? We look at the No on 2 proposition, and they're saying you don't want to give people marijuana when they're sick because that's going to be a gateway opportunity for them to just have marijuana whenever they want, for full out legalization. So why would he take that tack? Why would he say we've got to stop medical marijuana because it will lead to full-out legalization when there's 3 ballot measures where they are calling for full-out legalization? Well, it's pretty clear. Vice.com did an article exploring why he would be doing this. They say, is he doing this because he hates the idea of medical marijuana? And they say, well, no, actually, His family, he and his wife are major donors to a medical research facility in Tel Aviv that supports the use of marijuana to treat a number of diseases. And they say, moreover, marijuana-related initiatives are on the ballot, as I point out, in Oregon, Alaska, and